What is the ideal job or career for your personality type? Even by these types of video standards, this is kind of a silly premise. The main reason being that one job can encompass many different skill sets and be appealing for a plethora of different reasons. For example, becoming a musician might appeal to someone's performative nature. They might be linguistically gifted and therefore a great lyricist. They might be able to lead a band effectively and marshal people. They might be able to inspire those band members and foster creativity. But also, they might be highly analytical and enjoy figuring out the systems, patterns and principles involved in learning instruments and creating music. One profession, a million different reasons. So I'm going to talk about what archetypical kind of role or career each type falls into. For example, if I were to say teacher, that doesn't necessarily mean teaching in a school. It might mean someone who is conveying knowledge in some kind of consistent and structured way in order to help people. ESTP, negotiator. ESTPs can size people up quickly and accurately, finding weak spots and pressure points. SE is amazing at that and can judge the social distance between themselves and others and their respective place in the power hierarchy. In addition to that, they have enough people skills and even charm to be endearing when they want to be. That combination makes them excellent negotiators, a skill that can show up in many different careers, including literally being a negotiator, but also within broader professions such as the business world. ISTP, systems analyst. Usually this role specifically refers to technological systems, but for ISTPs, it's broader than that. It's a mistake to assume that ISTPs are exclusively adept at physical systems in a mechanic-like way. It's simply that those things are some of the most visible and obvious ones you'll see. It could just as easily be intellectual, philosophical, or abstract in nature. In that sense, ISTPs are one of the most intellectually versatile types. To analyze a system of any kind, you need to first map it out, understand its aims, and then find the areas of logical inconsistencies that need to be fixed. There is a tendency to explain why ISTPs are good at such things by saying they are very intuitive sensors, thereby perpetuating an intuitive bias. ISTPs are good at these things, period. INFJs, philosopher. Perhaps one of the lower paying professions on this list. Literally being philosophers, that's going to be tricky. But INFJs are always somehow philosophical in their nature. They often think in archetypical and symbolic terms, which gives their communication style a certain sage-like quality to it. They also inevitably fall into the role of advice givers to the people in their life, and for the most part, they enjoy this. Being in that position allows them to make use of their stronger functions, whilst to a certain extent allows them to avoid using their weakest function. ENFJ, diplomat. I was going to say politician initially, but I think that's too specific and probably would be quite unappealing to many ENFJs. ENFJs have the ability to connect with anyone, even people they might personally disagree with. It's more than just connecting, in fact. It's understanding. This allows them to bridge the gap between seemingly irreconcilable people. Although they aren't limited to it, people-focused situations are the ENFJ's forte. Sometimes their capacity to be open-minded, understanding, and forgiving can negatively affect them. But when they can weaponize it, it's a powerful tool for diffusing all manner of unpleasant and contentious situations. ENTP, inventor. ENTPs are innovators. Now, that's a word that's thrown around a lot, and most people don't live up to it, but ENTPs have this ability as a default setting. It doesn't have to come out in extreme innovation or invention. It can be something as simple as the way they might use language and the creative spirit they bring to day-to-day things. In some ways, they are cursed to create things and push limits. The most common kind of novelty is when two already existing ideas are brought together to create something that is emergently new. ENTPs do this automatically. Being an inventor is not exactly a common job, but it can pop up in many areas, such as being involved in prototyping or creating minimum viable products in companies, being involved in the ideational stage and letting others bring those into practice. INTP, scientist. INTPs view the world through principles and formulas. They spend huge amounts of time crafting logical frameworks and then use them in all areas of their life. The scientific method is a perfect example of one such framework. It's a self-correcting mechanism which brings the person using it ever closer to truth. or perhaps, more precisely, further and further from falsehood. It should be noted that INTPs won't necessarily do well in academia. They are intellectuals, but not always academics. They can be too autodidactic and push back against the overly systematic and restrictive nature of the processes seen in the halls of academia. Investigation, driven by the pursuit of truth, appeals to them greatly. ISFJ, counsellor. This is one that is too often given as an INFJ role, rightly so, but also greatly applies to ISFJs as well. One advantage that ISFJs have is simply that they can be more concrete and realistic in their advice to people. They are more likely to give someone a healthy dose of realism and bring them back down to earth whilst still maintaining a calm, comforting and supportive approach which makes people relaxed enough to be receptive to any incoming wisdom. ESFJs. Event planner. ESFJs are the grand masters of the social realm. Creating enjoyable experiences for people is something they embrace and excel at. Being able to tailor an event to match a person's desires and accounting for people both as individuals and as a group. This can range from planning a social event like a party or even something like a wedding. It's the same underlying skill set and can be applied to anything which involves giving people positive experiences. Theoretically, it could even involve designing someone's home for them, where knowledge of that person's wants are understood and factored in. They are people focused and can display an immense attention to detail, two skills they love to combine. ENTJ. Leadership positions. Was there any doubt? Well, not so fast. Yes, ENTJs at their best can be astonishingly good leaders, but almost without exception, they need to reach a certain level of maturity, otherwise they can be the worst leaders imaginable. It's not that they're necessarily attracted to working with people, sometimes they can quite dislike that in fact. It's that they're naturally driven to organize and achieve things. When you have that tendency and desire, the most efficient way to maximize your power and influence is to be able to marshal and delegate to other people. An effective leader with a good team is orders of magnitude more powerful than any individual can be. INTJ. Strategic advisor. Planning, plotting, scheming, and strategizing are things INTJs do without even trying. They are a natural fit for leadership when it comes to their vision and ideas, but other aspects of those roles are deeply off-putting and irritating to them. Playing politics and dealing with the endlessly dramatic tendencies of the humans is something they'll happily avoid, even if it means losing out on other things as a result. Make no mistake, INTJs can be great interpersonal operators and even manipulators. They just tend to hate it. Being the power behind the power solves that problem perfectly for them. Strategy without the spotlight. ISFP and INFP. Artists. Two of the hardest types to classify when it comes to careers. What is an artist? It's someone who creates things in various mediums, either as a way of impacting the viewer or as a means of self-expression. Ideally, both. One of the reasons that artist as a description is tricky is because almost anything can be classified as self-expression. But that's the point, in my view. It's about the motivation behind your actions. For some people, something as simple as writing a diary could either be an obvious method of writing down fond memories, but for other people, it can be done with an artistic sensibility. The same can be said for the way you dress or design your house. It's about the motivation. Some people wear clothes to just not be naked. Other people see it as a genuine expression of themselves. ESFPs. First responders. I mean that in the general sense, i.e. being able to quickly react to emergency events in all forms. ESFPs are at their best when in the thick of things, when they have no choice but to react. No long-term pondering and planning, just on the move amidst intense, relentless and fast-paced real-time situations. They swim best in hot water and can maneuver out of tight corners in an agile and even elegant way. They are, despite the marked absence of this quality in most descriptions, amazing problem solvers when the pressure is high, rarely flustered and always great companions and even great leaders in a crisis. ENFP. Social commentator. ENFPs have an insatiable interest in the abnormal, offbeat, absurd, and sometimes dark too. Professions such as journalism or being reporters would allow them to investigate all of the beautifully bizarre aspects of human nature and delve deeply into every far-flung corner of Earth. More than simply satisfying their curiosity though, it also allows them to offer their opinions on things. It promises adventure, exploration, and the possibility of inserting themselves into the stories they're covering too. ISTJ. Public servants. So that's probably the wrong description, but I couldn't think of a catch-all term for jobs like police officer, judge, the military, being a detective, and things of that kind. Jobs that involve upholding the structure of society, keeping stability and security in a systematic way, whilst dealing with literal, measurable realities that you can directly interact with. These kinds of professions allow them to make use of their strengths of being strong, steadfast, and realistic. One thing to note is that ISTJs make quite natural scientists as well. ESTJs, project manager. ESTJs get things done, probably more than any other type. They're the most effective and productive. However, they like to focus in on specifics, preferring to think more in individual tasks. The bigger picture and far-reaching long-term plans aren't typically what they go for. As a result, they function brilliantly as implementers. To see this role as somehow lesser than being the person outlining the grand vision is a mistake. If you are an implementer, an executor, that gives you an immense amount of leverage and power since all things run through you. If you are looking for a change of career or a job to begin with, please let me hire you as a subscriber. Also, feel free to check out the links down below in the description of the video, which include individual social media links and a Discord server. I'd recommend checking out all of them.